Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're looking at a phenomenon that has literally plagued humanity for centuries. I mean, fun fact, even Leonardo da Vinci notoriously procrastinated on the Mona Lisa for years, which absolutely drove his patrons up the wall. We are unpacking the fascinating and honestly often really misunderstood psychology and neuroscience of why we put things off. It's this totally universal human experience, right? Yet the exact mechanics behind it remain a bit of a mystery to most of us. We're going to break down the literal battle happening inside your head every single time you avoid a looming deadline. Okay, let's dive into this.
Look me in the eye for a second here. Have you ever delayed doing something really important even though you knew, like in your bones, that putting it off would just create an absolute mountain of stress later? Of course you have. I have. We have all been there. You're sitting at your desk, it's 11:59 p.m., you're staring blankly at a glowing screen, bargaining with yourself, and just wondering why you didn't start this 3 days ago when you had the time. It's that familiar creeping dread, right? The rational part of your brain is screaming at you to just open the document, while your hands somehow decide to, organize your desktop folders by color instead. It's maddening, isn't it?
Well, when that midnight panic sets in, our default response is almost always to beat ourselves up. We label it a character flaw, or we think we just have zero discipline. But we need to bust a massive myth right now. You are not lazy. The reality is that procrastination is an evolutionary byproduct. It is deeply rooted in human psychology and neurobiology. Delaying tasks isn't a lack of moral fiber, it's actually a specific, hardwired biological reaction to stress. To really understand why you avoid your taxes or that huge work project, we kind of have to stop looking at it as a time management problem. We have to start recognizing it for what it actually is, an emotional regulation problem that's just disguised as a productivity issue.
And this brilliantly illustrates what's going on under the hood. Think of our brains like time travelers, but terribly nearsighted ones. Evolutionarily speaking, our ancestors survived by focusing on immediate pressing needs. Finding food today, escaping a predator right now. Because of this, our primitive brain is fiercely hardwired for instant gratification. A quick, comforting activity feels safe and rewarding in the present moment. On the flip side, long-term goals require the prefrontal cortex, that's the logical, forward-planning part of your brain, to do some serious heavy lifting today for a reward you won't even see for months. The primitive brain simply doesn't value that distant payoff. Actually, scratch that. It doesn't just ignore it, it actively rebels against the prefrontal cortex, prioritizing immediate comfort over future success every time.
To really grasp why this internal tug-of-war happens, we gotta look at the chemical running the whole shebang, dopamine. You probably know it as the pleasure chemical, but it's actually the brain's primary driver of motivation and reward anticipation. It's essentially the currency your brain uses to decide what's worth doing. When you look at a massive, complex spreadsheet or a totally blank canvas, your dopamine levels actually tank, because the effort required is high and the reward is frustratingly far away. But grabbing your phone to scroll social media, boom, instant dopamine spike. Your brain is basically this ruthless optimization machine, and it will relentlessly seek the path of least resistance to get that chemical reward, leaving your most important tasks just gathering dust.
But it's not always just about chasing a quick chemical high. Often, it's about actively avoiding pain. Think about a time you had a massive presentation due, and instead, you decided it was the absolute perfect moment to deep clean the grout in your kitchen. Your brain wasn't being lazy. Its threat detection center, the amygdala, was actively trying to protect you. When a complex task triggers fear of failure or anxiety or just deep overwhelm, your amygdala treats it like a literal physical threat, like a bear just walked into your office. It pushes you away from that perceived danger and towards something safe and highly controllable, like organizing your spice rack or color-coding your inbox.
So the crucial point is how this ties into perhaps the ultimate emotional roadblock, perfectionism. There's this persistent, toxic thought that creeps in whispering, if I can't do it perfectly, why even start? And here's the thing, perfectionism is rarely about having high standards. More often than not, it is a paralyzing emotional trap. If you subconsciously demand flawlessness right out of the gate, the pressure becomes so immense that starting physically hurts. The amygdala flares up again. Your brain decides it's infinitely safer to just not try at all than to try and fail. So you delay indefinitely, choosing the guaranteed discomfort of procrastination over the terrifying vulnerability of a potentially imperfect attempt.
So what does this all mean? If our own evolutionary biology and our deeply ingrained emotional responses are actively working against us, how do we ever get anything done? Well, the great news is that you absolutely can outsmart your own wiring. We're going to pivot right now from the psychological problem to some incredibly practical science-backed solutions. Here are 3 highly effective techniques designed to bypass your brain's alarm system, quiet that amygdala, and help you systematically reclaim your time. Let's walk through these, because this is where the magic really happens. Step 1. Acknowledge the emotional block. Instead of trying to just brute force your way through the resistance, pause for a second and actively label the feeling. Literally saying to yourself, "I'm putting this off because I'm overwhelmed," actually dials down the amygdala's threat response by engaging your prefrontal cortex. Step 2. Break the task down into micro steps. If the thought of writing a 10-page report triggers panic, change the goal to simply opening a blank document. You make the steps so ridiculously small that it completely sneaks past your brain's defense mechanism. Step 3. Commit to starting for just 5 minutes. Tell yourself you only have to work on it for 5 short minutes, and then you have full permission to quit. Usually, once you cross that threshold of just starting, the friction vanishes. Dopamine starts flowing because you're making progress, and your brain naturally wants to keep that momentum going.
Look, the reality is, overriding this ancient biological programming is entirely within your control. You don't need a total personality overhaul, and beating procrastination certainly doesn't mean becoming some unfeeling productivity machine who never rests. It simply starts with taking one small, incredibly low-stakes action today. By understanding that your brain is really just looking for safety and quick wins, you can use these tiny steps to gently build momentum. Every small action is proof to your nervous system that the task isn't a life-threatening danger after all, which allows you to gradually take back the driver's seat.
You've got the tools now and the psychological insight to actually trick your brain into doing the hard work. So, I want to leave you with a direct challenge to apply this right now. What small step are you going to take today? Find that one tiny thing you've been putting off. Set a timer for 5 short minutes and just start. You've got this.